Hey there, guys. Silly intro today with me rolling in from the side. This is gonna be the next Kingdom Hearts video, and why it means so much to me. And honestly, let's just get right into it. I'm feeling pretty good today, and it's nice out, and I feel like I need to make the next one of these. So let's get into it. Last time, I believe I left off right after my replay of 358 and a half days. Um, I bet it kind of pisses fans off what I call 358 and a half days, because it's not the official title. It's just what I like to call it. But I bet it pisses people off. Anyway, yeah, so that was talking about like codependency and stuff like that. If you're watching these videos in order, it's probably going to make more sense. I feel like I'm just jumping right back into this. It's been like 2 weeks since I made my last Kingdom Hearts video, so it's a little bit not on my mind exactly, but I'm sure once I start talking about it, once I start reading my script, I'm going to start vibing with it a little more. So, yeah. I had saved up and allotted myself a certain amount of money to help myself take time off after college, after I graduated. I did this for my mental health. But that money was now starting to run out, and I had to make a choice. The first option was to keep taking time off, but rely on my father and my girlfriend financially. The second option was to get a job and try and support myself. I had just finished rewatching the 358 and a half days, the videos for that, and I was talking to my therapist about my tendency to fall into these codependent habits. And I didn't want that to happen, so I decided I would find a job. I also decided that as a way to encourage myself, I wouldn't let myself play Kingdom Hearts 2 again until I got that job. So shortly after adapting to my new work schedule, I started playing Kingdom Hearts 2. And I had forgotten that up until that point, the plot of the game begins with Sora rejoining the world after spending time alone. Sleeping, really. This seemed pretty fitting for what I was going through at the time. I was starting to rejoin the world after spending time alone. It felt like I was two people. At work, I would try my best to have a positive attitude coming in, and I would do my best to listen and follow my boss's orders, no matter how ridiculous. I was honestly considered a really good worker. I acted a lot like Sora, running around trying to help everyone and be responsible for as much as I could handle. And then when I would come home, it was a different story. I would often start crying because of the exhaustion of the day. I would get frustrated at small things and act out. I felt much more like Roxas during this time period. This cycle continued for a while. Daytime, I'd act like Sora, come home, and during the night, I would just be crying and feel empty. And all through that time, I was finding myself more and more exhausted. I would have so much pent up energy and frustration from the day, but when I would come and lay down and sleep at night, I couldn't sleep. Little noises would keep me up almost every night. How is someone supposed to keep getting up and doing the same thing every day when they don't even get a chance to sleep? It eventually got to the point when I felt like I was continuously dealing with anxiety attacks while I was working. And this is where a lot of my exhaustion would come from. I would work just through the anxiety. I would just work through the anxiety because there would be a voice in my head that says, if you don't keep working, you won't be able to support yourself. And if you can't support yourself, how is anyone going to love you? Or another voice that would say, this job is easy and you know it. If you can't hold this job, how are you ever going to be able to hold any job? It was really bad during this time period. I worked mostly alone, like in a room alone. And I did have to report back to a boss, but because I was alone, there was nothing really stopping me from, like, there's no distractions. It was just me and my emotions and my work all day long. And I would literally be crying while I was working, while I was doing my work, to the point that I couldn't see what was going on. It got really bad, and I ended up starting up some self harm habits again while I was there working. Nothing too bad. I wasn't cutting, but I was going to the bathroom and I'd slap myself a little just to pull myself out of this terrible mental state I was in. Um, like I would slap my wrists until they were red, like where I used to cut myself and stuff. Um, it was not a good experience working there. Um, and then when I would come home, all that anxiety would come out through my skin. I often ended up laying in bed, shaking, praying that these feelings would just go away and I could get some sleep. And I would use marijuana at night to help me sort out my emotions and actually get some rest for the next day. For quite a while, smoking was the only thing that helped me fall asleep at night. Yeah, this was not the best. I do think that the marijuana helped me a lot during this time period, but became extremely dependent on it. I was using way too much marijuana. Um, like it didn't get bad right away, but by the time about a year after this point, because I worked at this place for like a year, I was using like 2 to 3 like edible pills, like little marijuana pills with like oil in them. They were like 35 milligrams each, and I would like use those. Like do eat like as soon as I got home from work, I'd pop one in my mouth and swallow it, and I would also vape on top of that, and then like use another pill before dinner, and then another pill before bed. And dude, like that's like almost 100 milligrams of THC a day. It was sometimes more than 100 milligrams of THC a day. And that was terrible. I got so dependent on it. I honestly don't have a lot more to say about my replay of Kingdom Hearts 2. It was a pretty blurry time, mostly filled with trying to adapt to a working life. Kingdom Hearts 2 honestly offered me my the most amount of fun and relaxation I had during that. Other than that, it was mostly just working, mostly just crying, mostly just dealing with the stress of day to day life. And the funny part about all this was that I used to use my pain as a way to encourage me to get out there and work, but now it felt like my pain was something I could barely deal with. Um, so that's me done talking about Kingdom Hearts, my replay of Kingdom Hearts 2. Not a whole lot to say about it compared to the other games. But I'm going to start talking now about my time with Recoded. I never talked about Recoded yet. And Recoded and Kingdom Hearts 2 kind of go together here. Because, like, I consider the part where Sora beats Xemnas to be the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, right? But then after that, you have all this optional content, the data battles. And so, data battles, I figure that would be better in Recoded, a game about data versions of everything, whatever. So, once again, this is part of the 1.5, 2.5 bundle, so I only rewatched the cutscenes for Recoded. Because this game all takes place in the data world, I found this is what I was just saying. Because this game all takes place in the data world, I find it appropriate to watch these scenes just after beating the main story of Kingdom Hearts 2, but before fighting the data organization. So this section is more of a mixture of what Recoded and the data organization means to me. So that's what I just said. I'm not very good at making these videos yet, but that's okay. All of the themes of Kingdom Hearts 2 were still present in my life. I was still having trouble balancing between my work life and my home life. My emotions seemed to be all over the place. And there's really only one scene which meant anything important to me in Recoded. In fact, this section can be summed up in a single line. Quote, "My role was to see if you were ready to take ownership of the hurt inside of you." End quote. So I decided to test myself and see if I was ready to take ownership of my own hurt. And as I played through the data organization, I decided to find and label my own 13 darknesses. I used a process of forming and dissecting metaphors to help in an attempt to dissect my own mind and find what plagues me the most. Quote, "There's also a pain that always stays with you. There's only one way to deal with that. You face it head on and then you accept it." End quote. The first organization member I was able to beat was Lexaeus. And before I continued fighting the others, I decided to look inside and find out what Lexaeus represented personally for me. There were two things that stood out about Lexaeus: the concept of shattering Earth, along with his silent nature. I found in myself that this reflected the panic attacks I would have almost every day. The concept of the shattering the Earth below me is what the panic attack felt like. Like the Earth would just open up and break apart underneath my feet. Everything would just start feeling threatening. Sitting alone in silence is how I would often respond after having these panic attacks. It was so overwhelming. I would lose all my respect for myself because of the way I would act. I wouldn't even talk to myself afterwards. I would just lay in bed and space out and try to tune out my world. Tune out the whole world, really. My lesson to help me face this hurt was to break the silence and choose to persevere even after breaking down. Even just talking to myself or writing my feelings down was a huge first step. The second organization member I beat was Marluxia. Marluxia was the wielder of the scythe. This made me think of like a Grim Reaper type. He also didn't seem to think about anyone but himself and what was good for him, using all the other organization members around him to execute his plan. For me, I had held on to the desire for death through my whole life. I remember being little, laying in bed, wishing God would come down and kill me so I didn't have to be a part of this fucking world anymore. Excuse me for cussing. As I got older, I began hurting myself physically more and more, and even tried to kill myself. Even now, years later, I was still craving death. Looking aside, I began to realize that I was only seeing a small piece of things. I was only thinking about myself, and how I felt, and what I wanted. I was making everything about myself. What would my friends and family think if I actually killed myself, though? In what ways am I making my life more miserable by spending all this time daydreaming about death instead of just living my life? My lesson here was to stop chasing death, no matter how hard that might be. I was only limiting and hurting those around me. The third organization member was Ceyx. Ceyx was someone who basked in pain and anger, using it as his weapon. He was also somebody who turned away from his best friend, Axel, instead of reaching out to him. This goes along with the Lexaeus lesson for me. After my panic attacks, I would sit in my room sulking. It was one thing to begin talking to myself and writing down my feelings, but I was still isolating myself. It was time to learn I need to stop sulking in my own emotions all alone. It was time I learned to reach back out to my friends, even if I felt like a monster around them. It was time I learned to stop sulking in my sadness and choose to live my life. The fourth was Demyx. Demyx is all about music and flow. He's laid back and relaxed compared to everyone else around me. I have a medical condition that pops up sometimes called vasovagal syncope. It had appeared right before I took on Demyx. Sometimes if I get stressed or hurt, my body responds by passing out very quickly. All the blood rushes away from my head and I just fall over. It's incredibly annoying and embarrassing, and I often need to rely on those around me for help in these situations, as I often end up sometimes even vomiting on myself as I pass out, or sometimes I even hit my head. One time I hurt my nose, it was hurt for 2 weeks afterwards. This can be really dangerous and terrifying when I wake up. I had been having a stressful day, and I accidentally bit my tongue so hard that it started bleeding. I passed out very quickly, and I had been pushing myself too hard, and that's one of the reasons I was so susceptible to passing out. My darkness here is that I tend to push myself so hard that my body can't keep up. And my lesson was to learn to go with the flow and relax in the face of making my own mistakes. My lesson was to stop taking myself so seriously. Just enjoy life like Demyx. The fifth was Luxord. Luxord is the master of time. His battle was quite unlike the others, revolving around reaction skills compared to learning a specific strategy. The more excited I would get in this battle, the worse I would do. The only way I was able to win was by practicing patience and remaining calm. My darkness here is a tendency to push through things. I want my pain to go away quickly, so I rush through it. My lesson is to learn patience. Learning takes time. Dealing with pain takes time. I must learn to hold patience for myself and those around me. Even right now, I could learn to be more patient. All of these lessons are still things I'm working with every day. I might make these videos for you guys, and sometimes I stumble over my words. I'm not comfortable making videos. I'm not comfortable talking in front of people. I'm really pushing myself hard to do this, and it gives me a little bit of anxiety. And because I get that anxiety, I try and rush through it. I try and go through it faster, and I talk quickly. And I'm not usually somebody who talks this quickly. Usually, I'm a pretty slow, quiet person. So I have to be more patient with myself with these videos. So that way, maybe don't have to stumble on my words as much. The sixth darkness that I destroyed in the sixth data battle I did was Vexen. Vexen is all about intelligence and logic. I asked myself, in what ways do I deal with darkness in relation to intelligence and logic? As I looked around my room, I saw myself living amongst trash and dirty clothes. I myself was unshowered. I spent so much time working, and when I was home, I was obsessed with trying to figure out what was wrong. What was wrong with me, and how to heal myself. I wasn't making any time for chores. My lesson here was to make time for the logical side of life. Pay attention to the smaller details, because those things are important too. Sometimes just having a clean room can change the energy. The seventh was Larxene. Larxene's boss battle made me extremely anxious, with things constantly coming at me from all sides. This is what it felt like. This is what life felt like. I had to go to work, deal with my traumas, keep the house clean, make sure to cook and eat. It felt like I was constantly working with no time for fun. I felt like there was this constant anxiety underneath the surface. That was my darkness, this constant feeling of anxiety. Sometimes, life feels like one long anxiety attack. And my lesson was to keep trying anyway. Keep pushing forward anyway. The eighth battle was Xaldin. Most of Xaldin's time in the game was spent in Beauty and the Beast, so I associate him a lot with those characters. Sometimes I would have a panic attack. I would outburst emotionally. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, but it made my girlfriend very uncomfortable. She would then act differently around me for a few days afterwards. This really hurt my self-esteem, and I would put myself down for my actions. I felt like the Beast, accidentally lashing out at Belle. My darkness here was seeing myself as a monster, and my lesson was to not let others' perceptions of me change how I perceive myself. I must learn to fight for who I believe I am. I must also learn to be careful of emotional outbursts so I don't scare the people around me. The ninth battle was with Axel. Axel is all about passion and love for his friends. After I would scare my girlfriend with a panic attack, I wouldn't know how to act around her. By the way, I'm not aggressive. I'm not aggressive. I would never say anything to hurt her. I would never do anything to hurt her. It's not like I was acting like that. It's just we both grew up in abusive households, and sometimes our behavior triggers each other and we just start feeling scared. And that's what was happening here. So after I would scare my girlfriend, I wouldn't know how to act around her. I felt ashamed and embarrassed, like I wasn't good for her. And this was affecting the way I was behaving. The darkness here was my uncomfortable demeanor. All I did was continue the cycle of feeling uncomfortable around each other. My lesson here was to learn how to smile and show love to my loved ones, even if I'm having trouble loving myself. When I would begin to do this, my girlfriend and I would both ease up and things would start to feel good again. It's truly amazing how much it changes the feeling of a situation to show someone else love. Even if you can't find a reason to love yourself, sometimes you just have to show love, because that gives you a reason to love yourself. Everything just starts feeling better. Can't forget the passion, you can't forget the love. That was the lesson of Axel. The 10th battle was with Xigbar. Xigbar controlled the element of space. And during the battle, with him constantly shooting you from all sides, all you could do to beat him was block and find some personal space to keep yourself safe. That reflect spell, you had to reflect all of his attacks back at him. This lesson follows closely with the lesson of Larxene. In life, sometimes it feels like your anxiety is attacking you from all directions at once. It's hard to enjoy anything when you feel constantly attacked by the world around you. The darkness here is the lack of joy, and my lesson was to find my own personal space inside my mind. My lesson was to use something I enjoy to create a space free of danger and to help defend against incoming stress. These games, these Kingdom Hearts games, helped with that quite a bit, but I found I still needed to search out more things that I enjoy in life, things which fill me with positivity. Because this positivity could come from anything: fun TV shows, music, books, meditation, whatever works for you in the moment. Just like you can't forget the love, you can't forget to enjoy yourself. Everything starts feeling darker once you forget to enjoy yourself. The 11th battle was with Zexion. Zexion was all about illusions and shadows. He would hide in his illusions and then attack you when he saw an opening. The battle would always get easier if you could get back into the light. This was my darkness in this case, a literal lack of light. I was staying inside all the time, and this can mess with your body's natural rhythms. I needed sunlight. My lesson was to step out from the shadows of my home and into the sunlight, because sunlight helps burn away the negativity. The 12th battle was with Roxas. Roxas didn't want to be a part of Sora. He wanted to be his own person. His pain came from his desire, and that was my darkness in this case. Desire. I didn't want to be haunted by my memories. I didn't want to have any of these panic attacks or anxiety issues. I had to learn that sometimes you just have to go through the things you usually wouldn't want to do. Sometimes you just have to get over it because that's what life is, and you don't always get what you desire. I wanted a nice space for myself, to live by myself. I wanted this, I wanted that. All that was doing was making things worse. Sometimes you just have to be uncomfortable and accept that you're uncomfortable. Accept that things aren't how you would want them and get over it. Still try and enjoy yourself anyway. The last organization member I fought was Xemnas. Xemnas was obsessed with creating Kingdom Hearts. My darkness here is that of obsession. I have been obsessed with healing. I have been so obsessed with it that I barely leave time for anything else in my life. All of the work I do in my life, all of it, all of the media I consume, all of the thoughts in my head are constantly revolving around the pain that I went through as a child and trying to heal from it. And I don't know what to do to break that cycle. Maybe my lesson here is to just simply acknowledge my obsession. Honestly, I really don't know. I'm still working on figuring that out. But maybe that's just another aspect of this obsession. Maybe I don't need to figure it out. So those are my 13 darknesses. And it may seem silly to use a video game as a guide for self-exploration, but I truly feel like all the work I do here is helpful for me in the long run. These are my darknesses. 1. Panic attacks. 2. A search for death. 3. Sulking and sadness. 4. Physically pushing myself too hard. 5. A lack of patience. 6. An ignorance of anything needing to be done. 7. Daily anxiety. 8. Seeing myself as a monster. 9. Withholding love due to awkwardness. 10. A lack of joy. 11. A lack of sunlight. 12. A desire for reality to change. And 13. An obsession with healing from trauma. The next game that I played was Dream Drop Distance. I was quite proud of myself and my honesty in searching and finding what I believed to be my own darkness. As I began to replay Dream Drop, I wanted to do something similar. I wanted to find what I believed were my own lights. However, as I played the game, I began to realize I wasn't ready for this step yet. Dream Drop is a game about traveling through dreams, and before I could find my own light, I had to acknowledge the way that I was still living in a world of illusion. Traverse Town had to do with Sora and Riku, two friends living in separate versions of the same world, only seeing illusions of each other. I asked myself how I could relate to this, and I found I was going through something similar with my girlfriend. We were together, but it felt like we were in separate worlds. We loved each other, but we wanted different things. With the help of my therapist, I began to realize that I was only seeing my girlfriend for who I thought she was, and she was doing the same with me. I was seeing an illusion that I projected upon her, and I was telling myself that that's who she really was. In this way, I was trapping myself in a lie. This is one of the illusions I would need to learn to break out of. I would need to learn to see my partner and my friends for who they really are, not just the illusions that I projected upon them. I had done this with people before my girlfriend as well. I had assumed the most important thing to them was connection and relationships. But truly, that's what the most important thing was to me. And in reality, all these people had goals and lifelong dreams that they wanted to achieve. I had to understand that no one is exactly the way you see them. In the Hunchback of Notre Dame world, it was mostly about a man who locked himself in a sanctuary, too afraid to follow his goals and dreams. So I asked myself, what are my goals and dreams? Am I following them? As it turns out, I had been pushing my dreams and desires into my subconscious and giving up on them. I know, I'm back and forth. Just a minute ago I was talking to you about how desires are one of my darknesses, and then now I'm saying how I wasn't following my desires. Honestly, both are true, I think. I think both are true. I had never expected to fall in love with anyone. I never expected that if I did, I would feel so good. So in order to hold on to that love, I gave up on my own dreams. And this was another illusion I was living in. I believed that love is a worthwhile substitute for following your goals and dreams. And this is not true. I wanted to create art. I wanted to form a community in which I could help other people. I wanted to move out of my dad's home and find my own place to live. Quote, I'd say you still keep a lot locked inside. We all do that sometimes. There are some things we need to keep separate from the world at large, at least until we have the time to figure them out. And that's the end of the quote. And I was keeping my dreams, my goals, my desires locked deep inside of me. The story of Pinocchio is a story of a boy who chases his desires. His desires to be a real boy, his desires to go to a carnival, and he desires to save his father. Some of these desires are noble, while others only lead to pain and disappointment. I was beginning to remember what my desires were, but by playing through this world, I began to ask myself why I wanted these things. And it turns out most of the things I wanted and desired, most of my dreams and goals, they all revolved around my pain. Some of my desires were noble, while others were simply reactionary. I wanted to create art to understand my pain and express myself. And to me, this seems noble. I wanted to form a community to give my pain a purpose and hopefully help others get through their own pain. This seems noble. I wanted to move away from my dad and find my own place to live. But the reason behind this was because my dad did certain things that caused me to react in ways that I didn't like. Certain things he did caused me to have panic attacks and anxiety, so I wanted to run away from him. The truth, though, is that almost everything gave me panic attacks and anxiety. Having a scheduled job, grocery shopping, driving, loud noises, all of these things gave me anxiety, which would lead to panic attacks. Running away from my father wasn't going to solve my anxiety problem. In fact, he was helping me to support me financially, without judgment, while I was figuring these things out. Moving out would have been a stupid decision. And this illusion I was living in was that of believing everything I wanted was good for me. But it wasn't. So I'm going through this whole thing between Recoded and Dream Drop of trying to look into the reasons I want things and try and figure out if those things I want are even good for me. Are the things I'm working towards valuable for me, or are they only causing me more pain? The Tron world is one of logic, data, and programming. I was beginning to question my own programming. Why was I so reactionary? In the past, when anxiety or panic arose, I would do my best to wait through it and find something to calm myself down. The illusion I was living in was that all of my reactions were justified, and I don't need to know why I'm reacting. However, this just leads to a negative cycle where I keep reacting without ever getting better. Now, when my anxiety rose, I began asking myself why. What was triggering me? What about this situation is so uncomfortable? These answers don't come quickly or easily. In fact, this questioning of my reactions is still a process I go through every single day. You have to make a habit of it, otherwise, it just disappears. You have to make a habit. It's like a muscle you have to train. You got to question, why do I think the way I think? Why do I do the things I do? Why am I so scared of the things I'm scared of? In the Three Musketeers world, Sora and Riku both play their part on two sides of a stage. Sora plays his role in front of the stage, and Riku plays his role behind the curtain. I use this as a metaphor for living in two different worlds. There was a world outside of me, the physical world that everyone interacts in, and there's a world inside my mind, an intellectual and emotional world that only I could see. And through questioning my reactions, I began to see that these two worlds are separate. The world I experience inside my mind is not the same world I was sharing when I went to work or talked with people. The illusion I was living in before this was that these two worlds were the same. So I began questioning myself again. How does one merge their inner and outer worlds? Is merging these two worlds even possible? How do I maintain peace within my inner world when I'm venturing into the outer world? And how do I let people into my inner world so they can see me for who I really am? The Fantasia world is one of music. Neither Sora nor Riku could complete their task in this world alone. They worked separately, yet they complemented each other, just like a song. Music is composed of not singularly beat, rhythm, or melody. Instead, music is the compilation of these separate sound ideas all at one time. The illusion I was living in was that we are all separate beings. But that's not true whatsoever. We all affect each other in ways nobody else can see. My mind, my inner world, even though it may be impossible for others to see, it's still connected to my outer world. I'm just one single note in a song that the universe is playing. And even just one single note can change the tone of a song. I began realizing that all we are is vibrations. I began questioning what kind of vibration I was sending out. What kind of song am I playing? Am I a major chord or am I a minor chord? Am I diminished? You need to question these things. How are you affecting the song that is life? How do you fit in? How do you change the tone? Shortly before entering the world that never was, I passed out again. My sickness, the vasovagal syncope, it acted up. Once again, I had been pushing myself too hard. Between my daily anxiety, panic attacks, working, searching through my darkness and illusions, trying to be a good partner, trying to be a good son, and trying to take care of myself in the ways I thought I needed to, I wore myself thin. Everything I was doing felt right to me every single step of the way, yet I still made myself sick. Somehow, with all this stress, I got an infection within the lymph nodes of my abdomen. Within a day, I went from feeling okay to completely sick. I wasn't able to eat or even drink water. I was throwing up. I was passing out every time I tried to stand. I got taken to the hospital and it took me about 2 whole weeks to recover. My girlfriend, my father, and my little brother, they were all there to support me. Somehow, the 2 times I've played through this game have both ended with me breaking and needing support from my family, just like Sora would break down and need Riku to rescue him. The first time, it ended with me trying to commit suicide and needing support from my family to recover. The second time, I'm obsessively trying to heal to the point I make myself sick and I break down and I need support from my family to recover. The illusion that I was living in was that I can do this on my own, that I can deal with my trauma and healing on my own. This illusion was fueled by the fear of becoming codependent again. And the truth is that I can't do it alone. The truth is that I need more support than I'm willing to admit. When I recovered, I played through the rest of the game and I let myself beat it. It's still terrifying to me how easily I can get sick from taking on too much stress. Luckily, those who truly care for you will always have your back when it counts. Alright, that's where I'm ending with the Kingdom Hearts stuff for today. I want to talk a little bit more for just a second about this whole codependency versus doing stuff alone thing. It's such a struggle. When you're raised in a narcissistic household and you have PTSD and codependency issues, it is such a goddamn struggle to keep yourself on the right track. Okay, I'm not Christian, but I'm going to share a quote from the Bible that I remember when I was young. It says something about how the path to God is narrow and hard to walk, right? I'm not talking about path to God. I'm not talking about Christianity right here. I'm just saying the path to mental health is freaking narrow and hard to walk. It's so hard to walk that path. You lean too much on one side, oh, I'm being codependent and I'm hurting those around me. You lean too much on the other side, and oh, I'm breaking down from panic attacks. I'm getting infections in my body, and I can't take care of myself. I can't even stand or drink water without help. It sucks, and it's something I'm still dealing with today. I'm going to make a video probably tomorrow or the next day about it. There's stuff I've been going through. I feel like I need some financial help because I'm still dealing with these problems. I still can't go to work without tears running down my face. I can't see through my eyes at work because I'm crying too much. I'm crying too much. And I go to therapy. I go meditate. I do yoga. I get exercise. I eat healthy. I do EMDR. I've tried the pills, the medications. I've tried getting sober from marijuana. I've tried everything, but this shit doesn't change. It doesn't change. And I feel like I need help. Whether it's disability or some sort of support where I don't have to feel like I'm codependent on on the people I love, where I'm not putting them in harm's way just so I can survive. It's hard to talk about. It's really fucking hard. Like I said, I'm gonna put out another video, a diary entry, either tomorrow or the next day. Um, I have a doctor's appointment where I can possibly talk about getting on disability on Friday. That's 2 days from now. And so most likely I'll have a diary entry after that appointment because either I'm gonna be stoked and I'm gonna want to share it, or I'm gonna be really frustrated and disappointed. And I'm gonna need some way to cope with that and somewhere to express it. As for the last Kingdom Hearts update, that's going to be about Kingdom Hearts 3, and it's the very last one, and it's going to be coming probably next week. So, yay! Almost done with the scripted stuff. And once the scripted stuff is done, it's just going to be coffee chats. It's just going to be you and me talking back and forth, mostly me talking. After a while, I'm down to try and do some stuff like live chats, you know? We can talk about other people's stress, not just mine. You guys can ask me questions, what my life is like, what my tools I use to help deal with things are. You guys can ask for help with your own stuff. You can just have a place to vent if you want to. I think a live chat idea would be really cool. Right now I have 5 followers. That's awesome. That's freaking awesome, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. That's amazing. I feel like, you know, I'm still need to do the diary entries for a while. Maybe build up a fan base, but not fan base. Build up a community. A community. That's the word I like. Community. I want to build up a community where we can all heal together. We can all be honest about our true selves and heal together. This video game helps me, but what helps you guys? I want to know that. If you watch this, maybe put a comment in. What's helping you guys deal and process your traumas? All right, that's it for now. Stay tuned for more diary entries and the very last segment on the Kingdom Hearts video talks. And I hope you all have a nice week. I'm going to be sending you guys some love. Peace out.